Hey everyone, and thanks for clicking. This story still makes my blood boil. But it also gives me a certain, quiet satisfaction, even years later. You see, they skipped my wedding. My own flesh and blood, my family, just didn't show up. The pain was unbearable, the betrayal, a knife twisting in my gut. But the revenge? Oh, the revenge. It was perfect. And I'm finally ready to tell you all about it. Before I get into the juicy bits, if you like stories of sweet, sweet revenge, go ahead and smash that like button and consider subscribing. You won't regret it. Okay, let's rewind a few years, back to the summer of my wedding. My husband, Mark, and I had been together for 5 amazing years. We'd found our forever. We were planning the most beautiful wedding. Everything, from the rustic barn venue to the fairy lights strung across the ceiling, was meticulously planned. I spent months agonizing over every detail. The invitations were sent, RSVPs were rolling in, and the excitement was building. Now, I'm not going to lie, my family is complicated. My parents divorced when I was young, and the whole family dynamic was always a bit messy. My mom and dad both remarried. Each had their own set of kids, and the whole blended family thing was, well, a lot. But, even with the drama, I considered them my family. I loved them, and I wanted them there on my special day. I sent out invitations to everyone. Mom, dad, step-parents, siblings, half-siblings, the whole darn circus. I had hoped, I truly did, that this occasion would be the one thing that brought everyone together. That we could set aside our petty squabbles and just, for one day, be a family. I called, I texted, I emailed to make sure they were all coming. I even offered to help with travel arrangements and hotel stays. Everything was in place. The week of the wedding, the stress was palpable. Every little thing felt like a monumental task. Making the seating chart, choosing the songs, finalizing the last-minute details. It was exhausting. But the idea of finally marrying Mark, of celebrating with the people I loved, kept me going. I'd spent so long dreaming of this day, picturing the faces of my family, their smiles, their well wishes. It was going to be perfect. Or so I thought. I remember the scent of lavender from the floral arrangements, the faint, lingering smell of wood polish from the barn, the soft rustle of fabric as I chose my wedding dress. I envisioned Mark's face as I walked down the aisle, the tears of joy streaming down my mom's face, the genuine smiles of my siblings. I tried to imagine everyone celebrating together, forgetting their issues, and just being happy for me. I guess I was a fool for dreaming. The day before the wedding, I woke up to a text. A text from my stepsister, Sarah. Hey. Just a heads up, the family has decided not to come to the wedding. My stomach dropped. Not come? What did that even mean? I reread the text, my heart hammering against my ribs. The words blurred. Not come. I immediately started panicking. My hands began to shake, my vision swam. I called Sarah, my voice trembling. What are you talking about? I managed to choke out. The words felt like sandpaper scraping against my throat. My voice was barely a whisper. Well, the consensus was that the whole wedding thing was just too much. Too much drama, too much travel. And, honestly, we just weren't feeling it. Not feeling it, after all the planning, all the effort, all the love I poured into this wedding, they weren't feeling it. My mind raced, trying to make sense of the absurdity. Was this a joke? Was someone playing a cruel prank? The blood was pounding in my ears, drowning out Sarah's voice, the words jumbling into an incoherent mess. I struggled to breathe, the air suddenly too thin. But why? I pleaded. This is my wedding. This is the most important day of my life. Tears welled up in my eyes, blurring my vision. I felt a sob claw its way up my throat. Look, it's nothing personal, Sarah said, her voice flat. I could hear the echo of other voices in the background, a murmur of conversation that made me feel even more excluded, even more alone. We're just busy. And honestly, the whole family isn't in a good place right now. This is the least disruptive decision for us. The phone slipped from my grasp and hit the floor. The sound of the impact didn't even register. My world had imploded. The anticipation, the excitement, the dream I'd been holding onto for so long, all of it shattered. I felt utterly, completely alone. It was as if a hand had reached into my chest and ripped out my heart. I stared at the phone, a silent scream building in my chest. The image of the invitations, meticulously addressed, the stamps carefully placed, flashed before my eyes. The hours spent agonizing over every detail, the late nights scrolling through Pinterest, the endless phone calls, all for nothing. For them, it was nothing. An inconvenience. A decision easily made. I stumbled backward, my legs weak, and sank to the floor. I buried my face in my hands, trying to muffle the sobs that were beginning to rack my body. The air felt heavy, thick with a suffocating sadness. Mark found me sobbing on the floor. He held me, trying to soothe me, asking what was wrong. He knelt beside me, his arms wrapping around me, his presence a small, comforting beacon in the overwhelming darkness. They're not coming, I managed to choke out, the words catching in my throat. Who? He asked, his voice gentle, concerned. My family. They're not coming to the wedding, I sobbed, the words a fresh wave of pain. He held me tighter, stroking my hair, murmuring words of comfort. He was my rock, my anchor, and in that moment, his love was the only thing that kept me from completely unraveling. He listened patiently, his eyes filled with understanding as I poured out the story, the crushing weight of their rejection. He didn't try to diminish my pain or offer platitudes. He just held me, and let me feel. When I told him, he was just as shocked and hurt as I was. My friends rallied around me, offering support, but the gaping wound left by my family's absence was impossible to ignore. The texts, calls, and flowers helped, but I felt hollowed out. I felt so invisible. The wedding day itself was a blur. I went through the motions. I smiled, I danced, I tried to enjoy myself. But the emptiness was constant, a dark shadow that followed me everywhere. The seats reserved for my family remained empty. The pain was a physical thing, a heavy weight pressing down on my chest. I felt abandoned, rejected, and utterly worthless. I remember the drive to the venue that day. I stared out the window, the green fields blurring past. It should have been a day of sunshine, of boundless joy, but the sky seemed to reflect my mood, a dull, overcast gray. I didn't want to go, didn't want to face the empty chairs, the unspoken questions. I forced a smile as I walked down the aisle, but the smile felt brittle, fragile. I saw the faces of my friends and Mark's family, their expressions a mix of happiness and concern, but I couldn't connect. I felt as though I were watching a movie, not living my own life. The vows felt hollow, the words catching in my throat. I kept glancing towards the empty seats, searching for any sign, any indication that they had changed their minds. But there was nothing. Just the cold, hard reality of their absence. The reception was even worse. The music seemed too loud, the laughter jarring. Every conversation, every toast felt like a reminder of what was missing. I remember Mark's best man giving a heartfelt speech, his voice cracking with emotion. He mentioned my family, and a wave of pain washed over me. I barely remember the rest of the night. I remember Mark holding my hand, his touch grounding me, but even his presence couldn't fill the void. After the wedding, the silence was deafening. I expected some kind of explanation, some acknowledgement of their behavior. But there was nothing. Just the vast, empty space where my family had been. I tried to call my parents, to talk to them, to understand their reasons. No answer. I sent emails, I left voicemails. Nothing. Just the echoing void of their indifference. I poured out my heart in those messages, begging for an explanation, for some kind of closure. But the silence remained unbroken. Months passed, and the wounds slowly began to scab over. I focused on my marriage, on my life with Mark, on building a new, more supportive family around us. We spent time with his family, building new traditions. But the sting of their rejection never truly faded. It was always there, lurking beneath the surface. A constant ache in my chest. And the anger, oh, the anger. It simmered, slowly building into a raging inferno. I replayed the events in my head, over and over again. Why? Why would they do this to me? What had I done to deserve such blatant disrespect? The questions were endless, the answers elusive. Every holiday, every birthday, was a fresh reminder of their absence. I'd try to push it down, to ignore it, but it always resurfaced, a bitter wave crashing over me. I remember the first Thanksgiving after the wedding. We were at Mark's parents' house, surrounded by his loving family. It should have been a happy occasion, but I found myself staring at the empty chair across the table, the one that should have been filled by my father. The scent of roasting turkey, the sound of laughter, it all felt like a cruel parody of what I was missing. I excused myself and went outside, tears streaming down my face. Then, one day, I saw an article online. It was about a luxury cruise line. The cruise line was offering amazing discounts for their cruises. And I realized something. It was the perfect plan. The perfect revenge. You see, my family had always loved to travel. Cruises, specifically. They'd been talking about booking a huge family cruise for years. They'd always wanted to go on one of the really big, fancy ones. And I knew they were saving up for one. I knew it would probably take them years of saving to make it happen. This was my opportunity. A slow burn, a gradual unfolding of events. I could play the long game. I spent months meticulously planning. I researched their habits, their preferences, their spending patterns. I knew which cruise line they favored. I knew when they were likely to go. I knew the exact type of cabin they would dream of. And I knew the perfect way to disrupt their vacation plans. I created a fake online persona. I used a burner email address and a VPN to mask my IP address. I became the perfect customer, feigning enthusiasm and asking tons of questions on the cruise line's social media pages. I was able to befriend some of the workers at the cruise line. I also created fake social media accounts for fictional cruise groups. I cultivated an air of innocent excitement, asking about the ship, the excursions, the food, feigning an eagerness that was almost nauseating. I knew they would be going on a cruise eventually. The family was always planning vacations. It was a matter of time. It wasn't long before I found it. I had to be patient, I had to be cunning. This was a labor of love, a project of carefully crafted disruption. The moment I'd been waiting for arrived. I noticed on one of their shared social media accounts a post. The post talked about their dates they would be traveling, the general route, and which type of cabin they wanted. A shared family account. I had struck gold. The details were there, plain as day. The dates, the itinerary, the exact cabin they coveted, a luxurious suite with a private balcony. My heart leaped. The stage was set. And now, the real fun began. Using the information I'd gathered, I booked the exact same cruise. But here's the kicker, I booked multiple cabins. A deluxe suite, 2 regular cabins, and a few connecting rooms. I also meticulously reviewed every rule and regulation of the cruise. I knew the ship's layout like the back of my hand. I'd studied the passenger guidelines, the safety protocols. I was prepared for every contingency. Then, I went to work. I started filing complaints. Non-stop. About everything. I reported sick passengers in the suite. I reported that someone was smoking in a non-smoking area. I complained about the food, the service, the noise levels. And I made sure my complaints were timed perfectly, always coinciding with my family's location. I was relentless. I documented everything. I was the model of an annoying passenger. I remember the thrill of filing those first complaints, the rush of adrenaline, the knowledge that I was slowly, subtly, disrupting their carefully planned vacation. I imagined their frustration, their mounting annoyance, their desperate attempts to enjoy themselves. A smile played on my lips as I pictured the scene. The cruise line, of course, had to take these complaints seriously. They launched investigations, they rerouted events. They began issuing warnings. It was a masterclass in chaos. I made sure it all felt real. The staff had to take every complaint serious. I even created an anonymous blog detailing my horrifying experience with the cruise line, and subtly shared it within the online cruise communities. The blog gained a cult following. I gained an audience. The crew were caught in the crossfire. I played up the sympathy card. I wanted them to feel real pain. The staff would need to take every complaint seriously. It was important to make it convincing. And then, the final, and most crucial, step. A few days before the end of the cruise, I filed the ultimate complaint. I reported a potential health risk, mentioning something about a highly contagious virus. I claimed it was spreading through the ship, and the cruise line must quarantine every person on board to make sure it's contained. The final act, the culmination of months of meticulous planning. I imagined the scene of them confined. It was a calculated risk, of course. But I knew, based on the cruise line's protocols, what would happen. The ship was indeed quarantined. Every passenger, including my family, was confined to their cabins. All excursions, shows, and activities were cancelled. The vacation they had dreamed of for so long had turned into a nightmare. I knew it was a gamble. I could have been wrong. But all the research, all the planning, made the risk more palatable. The aftermath was glorious. I received the most enraged emails from family members I'd ever seen. They were beside themselves. They were furious. They screamed about being wrongfully confined. They complained about the food, the boredom, and the sheer inconvenience. The words practically leaped off the screen, filled with a rage I had never seen before. I, of course, played the innocent, concerned friend who had also had a terrible experience. I offered my condolences, but played it coy. I saw their vacation crumble before my eyes. I loved every minute of it. Oh, that's awful. I can't believe that's happening. Did the cruise line resolve your issues? My mother, bless her heart, replied and confirmed my suspicions. They were indeed the people I was targeting. There it was, the confirmation. I was grinning from ear to ear. It was weeks before the quarantine was lifted, and even then, the aftershocks continued. My family received refunds, of course, but the memories of their dream vacation were forever tainted. They complained for months. They went to the press. I watched their stories on the news, and chuckled to myself. Their names. Their photos. The story. I was in control. Did they ever figure it out? Maybe. Probably. But I never confessed. To this day, they still don't know. I reveled in the anonymity. I had my peace, my solace. But, the satisfaction. The exquisite, delicious satisfaction of knowing that I had finally, in my own way, made them understand just a fraction of the pain they had inflicted on me. It wasn't a perfect solution, of course. It didn't bring me closure or magically erase the pain of their betrayal. But it did give me a sense of control, a way to finally level the playing field. I eventually did talk to some members of my family, but it was years later. They had their own excuses, their own reasons. They said they were sorry. But even now, I can still hear Sarah's flat voice on the phone. I still feel the emptiness of that wedding day. And sometimes, when I'm feeling particularly vindictive, I still pull up the news stories about the cruise. I see their faces, the subtle signs of their misery. I had my revenge. A story to tell. I had been reborn, not just as a wife, but a force to be reckoned with. But at the end of the day, I've moved on. I'm happy. I have an amazing husband, a wonderful life, and a supportive group of friends. And every time I think about it, I realize that by skipping my wedding they lost more than I did. They're still stuck in their web of petty squabbles and unresolved issues. I have escaped. So, was it worth it? Yes. Absolutely, 1,000 times over, yes. Did I feel bad? For a moment, maybe. But then I remembered their actions, and the empathy faded away. I got to have my revenge. So, what do you guys think? Have you ever been wronged by your family? How would you react? Tell me your own revenge stories in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories. Thanks for listening.